Hey everyone, what's going on? Time for a BRAP rant. I haven't done a BRAP rant in quite some time. And lot to talk about. The BRAP rants are usually conversations about certain narratives that we're seeing in the gaming community. It's usually about the conversation that we're seeing, misinformation, disinformation, all that good stuff. But so there's certainly a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of Starfield related conversation out there that we're going to get to here in just a little bit. But I want to welcome Game Logic. What is going on, Logic? Also known as Hamp. How are you today, Logic?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long day, man. Putting in some Baldur's Gate 3. I got to say, I think my next PC build, though, I'm going to go with a either more exhaust fans or like maybe a cooling block for my GPU. My temperature on my GPU when I'm running Baldur's Gate 3 at ultra settings is hits about 8. Yeah, it fluctuates between like 77 and 80 degrees Celsius right now. So, can always get those temperatures down. So, I think that's what I'm going to do next time. I think for my next rig, I'm going to do that. I think you, do you have a cooling block on any of your GPUs on some of your builds?
No, not on my GPUs.
Okay. Yeah, just just like I said, just something I was thinking about as I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 today, because I run what is it? It's MSI Afterburner. So I'm running that, and it's showing me what like my temperatures are and how much my CPU utilization is, GPU utilization is. But I'm getting, even at ultra settings, getting like it's definitely well over 60. I would say well over 60. I would say it's anywhere between like 90 to 120 FPS, depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm out in the open world, I tend to see a little more of the drop in frame rate. When I'm indoors, it's usually about like 120 for the most part. So it runs pretty good though. I can't complain. So
I think next time you actually just need to go with a slightly bigger case and a different cooling solution for your CPU. I think your problem is really that you only have the two exhaust fans in the front, and they're mounted in the less efficient manner. Because I think I can't remember which way yours is the way I originally started installing my AIOs, but I've switched now. I think
to
I put the no. I still sometimes you still have to front mount them, but when they're front mounted, I can't. I don't have any of my acrylic screens towards me right now, but I can't remember if you put cooling fans in front of the water block or behind the water block, but one of those tends to be more efficient than the other. And the way the rig I think bought, or I think the rig that I built at the same time you bought yours, both of them are the same way, which is the less efficient way. I think the next time you need to go with a 360 millimeter upfront AIO. I think you have a 240 now, and I think you need to flip the things around. I think because you should. The temperatures you're talking about you're getting now on Baldur's Gate. I don't think you should be getting those temperatures. Because Baldur's Gate is it's a good looking game, but it's not a demanding game because like you and I have talked. It doesn't have a lot of motion and stuff. It's turn based.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is that I only have the one fan on the back. I don't have any fans at the top pulling the air out. The top is. Right. The top is ventilated. There's like a mesh screen, and then it's under. Then the other issue is the tower sits under my desk. It doesn't sit on the floor. It sits on a like a little, I forget what it is. It's like a PC stand with wheels. You could change the size, the length and width of the stand based on your PC on your desktop. I have that, so it sits off the ground, but it's under my desk. So there air's like hitting the bottom of my desk, so it's not really the best solution. I think it would be much better if I had the desktop just sitting out like on the floor somewhere else. Like where the hot air could just rise and just not get trapped under the desk either. Now, The back of the desk is open. The side of the desk where the desktop sits is open too. But again, it's still the heat's still hitting the bottom part of the desk for the most part too. So
yeah,
so that's
yeah. I mean, I think you have other things going on that you will be easier for you to change than trying to go water block to your GPU.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I was just, but I think I wouldn't mind just getting a water block at some point though. My next build, not this one though. Yeah, so let's see here. A big shout out to Capono5150. See some familiar faces here in the live chat. I did drop a link in the chat. Please do me a favor, retweet or drop the link on your favorite social media platform. And all right, so let's talk about Starfield here. So this is actually interesting. A developer, I think this was earlier today. Let me pull up the tweet here. Give me a second here.
Yeah, well, you're pulling that up, so just to level set, because it seems we get people confused by this all the time. So the Wednesday night show is when we primarily, not exclusively, but primarily talk about news and kind of mini game reviews of stuff we're playing. The rants are about things that we are displeased with. So there's no need for people to leave a lot of comments about how we're not covering the news or whatever. The rants are not the news show, just to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. This is Wednesday show is a different show. It's more news related. This is a rant. This is just, shooting off the cuff, talking about things that we're seeing on Twitter, in the community, dialogue that gamers are having about games or specific topics. So, this Grums, his name is Grums on Twitter. His name is Mark Kern. He's the CEO and designer. He's a CEO and designer, former team lead of OG World of the original World of Warcraft, producer of Diablo 2, StarCraft. And he actually put out a tweet today that really got some people upset about Starfield. He put a screenshot of Starfield, the startup menu, and he said that the start screen of a game can reveal a lot about how rushed the team was and how much pride they took in their work. Starfield screen either shows hasty shipping deadlines by a passionate team overworked or a team that didn't care. This individual was also very outspoken about the acquisition of ABK by Microsoft. So if you haven't seen some of his other tweets about that, he's very, very, very outspoken about the potential impacts of that acquisition. But I thought this was kind of an interesting tweet. Of course, some people are very upset about this. I saw the Starfield menu yesterday, the start screen, and just really didn't think anything of it. Just thought it was very, it's minimalist. It's not but I didn't think what this individual said didn't even resonate or come to my mind as I was looking at the start menu. It just seemed clean, to the point. I just didn't. I thought it was fine. So I don't know. I was kind of interesting that he tweeted that out. And Logic, we were talking about this before we went live. You're saying in comparison to other science fiction games, this is kind of par for the course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of 4X games, space exploration games, space flight simulators. So, Star Citizen, Star Wars Squadron, Elite Dangerous, etc. I mean, in my head, I'm not saying that I'm completely correct because I just didn't have time and I don't really have the notion to go off and pull up every single start screen and look at it. But what's in my head is that I think in general those types of games, anything oriented around kind of space exploration and kind of the wonder of space, most of the time they are kind of that really, really clean minimalist approach that a lot of it is they want to convey the thought of the wonder of space and the great expanse, and what you and I were talking about before is that once you get into those games, you get literally assaulted by things that are on the HUD. Mm-hmm. It is a heavy HUD management, and I've done a lot of part of my professional work is kind of dealing with cognitive workload of of operators when they are in vehicles or machinery, and kind of what the action processing, decision making processing do loop is, what we often refer to as an OODA loop, and the metrics that go around how you enhance or paralyze somebody's decision making, particularly in crisis. Because you've overloaded them with information. Sometimes that is not pertinent to the exact things that are going on right now. So, those games, and then there's a whole, art, science skill to operating, vehicles, equipment, et cetera, like that you have to become accustomed to over a career, as you're presented that information and learn how to kind of manage it and go through that OODA loop in your own head. So, you're kind of assaulted with things like that once you're in the game, just a plethora of information and learning how to manage that on your screen and constantly scanning the screen for, status updates on various systems, et cetera. And so it always seems to me that in order to kind of be the antithesis of that, the start screen menus have been very minimalist. So, the Starfield start screen menu doesn't surprise or amaze me. In general, a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is how, and I've said this before, on various occasions, one of the biggest problems in my mind with the conversation in the gaming community is that the closer we get to these kind of monumental releases, like these big historical fireworks shows of a game release, the worse and worse the interaction and the gaming conversation and just the sheer knuckleheadedness it increases. Like the biggest dragon to slay right now in the walk up to Starfield is not the start menu. There are other things that are more pertinent. And again, this is, to me, what should be going on right now is this should be a fairly quiet time in my mind. Both, particularly for actual fans of the game. But we see a lot of this wailing and gnashing of teeth, not just the people trying to tear Starfield down, but also of the people who are trying to prop it up in ways that are very contrived and just kind of leave me struggling sometimes to try and find, nice things to say about the impending release. And again, this is coming from the perspective of, someone who often rails a little bit against, the way we overhype games, the way, and I get it, I'm not the norm. I just don't understand a lot of even BRAP, when you say it, like, I'm excited for upcoming release. I'm like, I'm not, like, the release will get here when it gets here. And in the meantime, I need to do the damnedest I can to play everything that I currently have on my plate now. And I tend not to live in anticipation. So it's kind of weird how some of the behaviors that I see that drives out in the gaming community, the gaming conversation.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why I wanted to do this BRAP rant too, because we are seeing that conversation. I think, again, I thought this developer, I thought this take on screens. And look, maybe that's the case. He's got some inside baseball and software development that I don't have. Maybe that's true, but again, I don't think that's really relevant at all. Me personally, I don't find it relevant. So the start menu is very minimalist in design. Okay. I don't care. I don't think that's a big deal. And it's funny, Slow-Mo just posted Mass Effect 2, same thing. The start menu is very minimalist as well. And we know how good not Starfield, but Mass Effect 2 is. So, but no, I don't disagree. Like, there's, and we'll talk about some content creators out here that are really, this is the problem I have with extreme, the more fanatical side of the fan base on these platforms, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox. Oddly enough, you really don't see Nintendo fans really act this way. But we'll talk about some of the behavior of some of the fanatics more recently over Starfield. And again, I think this is a time where we should be excited about this game. This is Bethesda's first new IP in 20-something years. This is, I would argue, probably the most important IP for Xbox in a very, very long time. And And the other thing too is, I think I brought this up on Crossfire yesterday, but 2023 has been it's just an amazing year for video games. An amazing year. I mean, I am coming off, me personally, I played the Burning Shores DLC. I played there's something I'm just gonna in order here. I played Burning Shores, Tears of the Kingdom, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3 now. I mean, those are all great games. And now we have really, Logic? Come on. You know what, man? Oh my God. Really? He uses toys to control his multi-$1,000. Oh my God. Come on. You know what? The Walmart slander is one thing, but you've crossed the line now, sir. He uses toys. Oh my God. I think somebody did ask me about the if I thought, so Andy Hart, real quick, I did see your question about will the game run well on PS5? I don't know. I can't. Maybe. I hope. I'll just say I hope it runs well on the PS5. But I will say this: the mouse keyboard is definitely the better way to play. It's faster, it's more precise. The point and click works very well. Not that the interface is bad for controller, but it's not as fast, not as robust as or intuitive, I think, as using mouse keyboard. And I'm just seeing that from you could just, if you watch videos, you could just tell. You could just see it. It's just easier to navigate through your inventory, easier to move your characters, easier to put, move items. Everything is just a little bit more faster, a little more streamlined in that regard. So I would say if you could, yeah.
In any hurt, I'm trying to nail it down, but it looks like it will support mouse and keyboard on PS5. But
I hope
I'm trying to triple and quintuple cross check that.
Yeah, and not that the controller, using a controller is not terrible. But if you could do mouse keyboard, I would say mouse keyboard is the way to go. I'm not using mouse keyboard right now because I'm playing on my 65-inch OLED. See, Logic, he didn't mention that part. That the reason why I'm using a controller is so I can play on my, $2,500 OLED. So, anyhow, but I would go. I mean, if you can do it, I would go mouse and keyboard. I definitely recommend that. All right, what was I saying here? Logic. I guess what's frustrating is actually, let me grab this super chat real quick before I get into this. We got Light X with the $5 super chat. Says, with the upcoming release of Starfield, what would qualify success, e.g. sales, subscriptions, MAUs, etc.? Is Microsoft just eating the lost revenue? It's a great question, Logic. I'll let you answer that. What are your thoughts?
So the problem with the question is, in general, there's 99 different ways to dissect it. And I don't mean in terms of how would you quantify success rate, because you threw out some options of how you would do that, but success in whose eyes? And I often go back to, and often get a lot of pushback and often get a lot of flack about going back to it's the company who determines the success. There's a loud volume of gamers and influencers and YouTubers who are like, well, the benchmark for success is this. And I'm like, no, you're not a stockholder. You're not making objectives and directing performance of operating units to achieve stockholders, visions of success. So it's not that, I often, don't agree with the PlayStation, people who feel like the benchmark of success is always sales. And because Microsoft doesn't reveal sales, therefore, by definition, Xbox is unsuccessful. It doesn't actually work that way. If you, dealt with managing finances of a large corporation, that's just not the way it works. I think for Microsoft, they have kind of leaned into what defines success for them now, which is, building games that generate engagement and build communities, right? And that's what they want. And a lot of that is generated around, I know it's going to sound weird, but in this case, because Starfield's an exclusive, but generating that by the multiple places that it deploys games. And while Starfield is not on PlayStation 5, it is available on Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, PC, and will be available, via the cloud, if you choose to go that way. Not saying that's a great way, but saying that it will be available there. That is a fact which cannot be argued. So I think success for them is just going to be on uptake and numbers of people who play the game, and whether or not it's a success, that the number of people who have touched the game is an internal metric, or just a bunch of kind of outwardly facing PR BS, which I think a lot of it is. That's what they're going to point to as success. Internally, I think the metric is going to center around MAU, with the belief that MAU is a bellwether that indicates, obviously, the more people that are engaged with your game, the more likely they are to purchase additional content for your game. And we're seeing with the initial release of Starfield, we're seeing the initial expansion pack that's available. I'm expecting that there will be more. I am expecting that they will be charged. I'm expecting that they will be, drabbled out. And you will be able to purchase them, for your 10% discount if you're a Game Pass subscriber.
Yeah, no, that's well said, Logic. One thing I do want to discuss, though. Hold on a second. I'm reading the chat here. Yeah, Capone, I agree with you. I wish Microsoft would give out more data as well, but. Anyhow, all right. So one thing, man, and this is what I think is ridiculous about the gaming community at times. And let me be more specific. The more fanatical side of the gaming community, and the more fanatical content creators. I got a lot of flack for saying a while back that the more fanatical side of the Xbox community are like MAGA supporters. They're like the extreme right wing. But I say that because they behave like that. They behave like disenfranchised consumers, or people that feel disenfranchised in this country, which are usually far right wing individuals. But, and like it's every little thing that someone reports on related to Xbox, or an Xbox first party exclusive, or anything Xbox related. It's media bias, or I can't believe this. I can't believe they're doing this. And it's like this victim complex, man. It's like this victim complex. And I don't understand where it comes from, because this is about video games. Like how can you feel like a victim as a video game? How can you behave like you're a victim when it comes to video games? I don't understand it. I don't. And so this particular content creator, and I will use his name here, Mr. Boomstick XL, who we've had on the show many years ago. Look, Boom's a nice guy. I've talked to him before off air. But as a content creator and what he posts on social media, he is a purveyor of misinformation, disinformation. He just is. He, I think, for whatever reason, gets emotionally wrapped up into what people say about Xbox. He seemingly presents Xbox as this victim. And that leads to a whole nother issues that I think creates, or that leads to creation of a whole nother issues with a lot of the more fanatical sides of the Xbox community, and the more fanatical sides of Xbox content creators, where I think that victimization and that blaming and that pointing the finger at everyone else, and I really do believe this, I think is a reason why Xbox is in the position that it's in, because they do not hold them accountable ever. It's always everyone else's fault that Xbox is either in third place, or they're not getting a fair shake by the media. It's nothing that Microsoft has done. It's the media's fault. It's Sony's fault. It's Lena Khan's fault. It's the FTC's fault. Microsoft's performance in 22 years in gaming, and the fact that they've never won a console generation, is everyone else's fault but Microsoft's, according to the more fanatical sides of the Xbox community. And I think that's unfortunate, because I do think that it's important for consumers to hold companies accountable, especially if they're taking your money. I think it's okay. I think the sad part of it is, and we see it too, Logic, like if you voice, I think the unfortunate thing, and I think it's the more fanatical side of the Xbox community and the fanatical content creators in the Xbox community. I think what they've done is they have taken, because look, sure, they are people on the PlayStation side that are console warriors that poke fun at Xbox and say negative things about Xbox. But I think what the fanatical side of the Xbox community does, and the fanatical content creators in the Xbox community, what they do as well, is they take people who actually provide constructive criticism about the Xbox platform, people who are actually in the Xbox ecosystem, like myself, like you, Game Logic, and when we lay out tangible things, tangible evidence, they come in and they want to say things like, oh, you're just hating on Xbox. There's a difference between hating and providing some kind of critical thought, or, providing constructive criticism. And they, for some reason, think that constructive criticism or critique is bad. See, and then, look, Froggy T, right? BRAP pretending to be part of the Xbox community. Froggy, I'm not pretending to be anything. I'm in the Xbox ecosystem. I'm a consumer. I'm a consumer of the Xbox brand, of the Xbox platform. I pay money. I think that's, Froggy, that's like your behavior, that kind of commentary is part of the issue. It's like this, like, let's be children and be like, oh, you just think you're part of the Xbox community. No. Logic, and this goes back to what you and I talk about. And now I'm getting ready to rant. See that, like, the blood's boiling here a little bit. But this is part of the problem. This is part of the issue. Like you and I have said on many occasions, you and I and others are having a conversation at a much different level. Froggy T Wright's having a conversation like at the romper room level. And we're just not there. We're consumers. We're providing tangible evidence. We're providing, you did this with Forza on Wednesday. Remember the whole conversation around Forza, and you talked about your experience playing the Forza franchise for the last 17 plus years. You laid out examples as to why you were concerned, and people were shouting you down. And that's the problem. Like, how can you expect companies to get better if you can't offer constructive criticism? Look, I don't disagree. Someone coming in being like, oh yeah, Xbox sucks. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That is hate, because they're not providing anything tangible as to why Xbox it sucks or whatever the case is. But we're not utilizing that kind of language here on this show. We don't utilize Froggy, you're right. Oh, I do. Yeah. You know why I complain about Xbox? Because I'm in their ecosystem. I'm a consumer. I can do that. And if it bothers you, Froggy T, right, you don't have to listen. But you're here. You're driving the algorithm. You're driving the engagement for me on YouTube. You're driving my ad revenue. So thank you. I appreciate that. But when we provide constructive criticism, you see what happens. It's like case in point right here, Logic, Froggy T, right. Or they come in and they try to censor us, or they try to obfuscate what we're saying.
And I disagree with that assertion, Froggy T. And I'm not sure if your original comment, was intended the way it came off. But I'll just talk about the channel in general. But and BRAP, you can correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, because I'm synchronizing kind of what you've said with what I've said. Like I have said, Game Pass is a good deal. And enables a lot of people who would otherwise not be able to afford getting to video games, allowing them to get to video games. So that is a comment that is positive towards Xbox. I disagree with the foolishness that I sometimes see running around that Game Pass is the best deal in gaming. I think that hyperbole and applying that superlative in an authoritative manner that suggests that everyone should agree with it, I just think that's kind of crap. Same thing for like the people who run around and say, oh, well, only a person who was trying to, fend for PlayStation would ever prefer to pay $70 for a game instead of paying $70 for a subscription. And I'm like, that's a really dismissive, naive, degenerative comment, right? And way to say it. Again, kind of dumb. So, I've been on record for several years saying, in light of the strengths that PlayStation has, Microsoft taking the strategic approach to what I call change the geometry of the battlefield, to literally apply, if you've ever read Sun Tzu, a lot of the teachings of Sun Tzu in terms of warfare in the business battle space, makes absolute sense to do what they've done. And I've seen them, having studied the company for 23 years, do the exact same thing in many other areas, which is stop fighting the person's fight. I've said on this show multiple times that it makes no sense if you have longer arm reach to stay in and box toe-to-toe with Mike Tyson. I've said multiple times that is a smart thing for Xbox. So your assertion that all we do on this show is talk bad and complain about Xbox is inaccurate. I mean, just factually and mathematically and quantitatively so.
Yeah. We've actually, he probably hasn't heard me talk about much. Probably, and I know you don't agree with me on this, but I've come on here and said Starfield's game of the year. I mean,
well, right. I mean, you've talked about how excited you are.
Yeah,
I bought two collector's edition versions. Like, I don't know how many more positive it needs to be. And in fact, again, I kind of joke about it, but I'm kind of not joking about it. Like when I say I subscribe to Game Pass Ultimate at the max tier, I'm no longer going to argue with people who aren't subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, who don't literally pay and access Xbox across cloud, PC, and Xbox.
Yeah,
I have people arguing with me who participate at a lower level, not saying financially, but just participate at a lesser degree within the ecosystem. I constantly, routinely play games. I think we were talking about this the other day. Forza Horizon 5. I think I pulled my metrics on Forza Horizon 5, and I constantly have people coming at me about being negative towards Xbox. And I think, what is it, like 40% of my achievements on Forza Horizon 5 like have been achieved by less than like a single digit percentage of the Xbox community playing. Like, so I'm engaged with the ecosystem at a greater degree than a lot of other people who are having these arguments. And this is why we feel like they fall in the bucket of gaslighting.
And this is why I refer to them as behaving as if they're in a cult, because you notice that you have to, you can't criticize ever. You can't do that. It's got to be positive 110%. And that's just, to me, that's, first of all, I think that's, people like to throw the word anti-consumer. That's anti-consumer behavior, because that doesn't allow you to hold companies accountable. It doesn't allow you to express dissatisfaction with the product. That's anti-consumer behavior. But that's the thing, like Logic, the thing is, what bothers them is that it's funny, like they'll come in and they'll say, oh, you're always complaining about Xbox. But they completely skate by the fact that we talked about the things you mentioned, that I think Starfield's going to be one of the best games of 2023. And I said it's probably going to be a Game of the Year contender. It's not even out, I'm saying that. You have 2 consolation editions. You log in a lot of hours into Forza Horizon 5. We're actually paying customers at the highest tier of Game Pass in the Game Pass ecosystem. We're not doing dollar deals. We're both paying Game Pass Ultimate. My subscription's running up at the end of the year, so I'm probably not going to renew it, but whatever. We've actually purchased numerous Xbox controllers. I primarily game with an Xbox Elite 2 controller on my PC. Because there are things that they put out that have been good. Everyone likes to talk about sports. Everyone likes to talk about sports. In sports, what do? We root for our teams. We're also critical of our teams. Go ahead, Lodge.
Yeah, I mean, people say. I think there was one comment in the chat that was like, you know, I forget exactly what the comment was, but I'm not writing the response. But you know what I was thinking? I was like, look, when the Bears are 3-14, like, because the offense does well one game, that doesn't mean that. I don't know. I don't think fans then cheer and say keep the head coach on. The offense is doing well, right? If the Bears are 3-14, they're a 3-14 team, and people aren't going to talk well about them. They're not going to get good reviews on ESPN until they're no longer a 3-14 team. Like, and I would love to talk. I would love for, you know, the general tone of my discussion around Xbox to reflect more of an A student, right? To put it in those types of terms. But until Xbox starts performing like that, then I can't talk about them that way. I've spent almost 30 something years now writing performance reviews for employees, and I constantly convey to people, please don't write a performance review about a person who is like John Paul Jones, right? When they don't really walk on water, right? And vice versa. So I can't sit here and have a conversation about a company performing well when they're not actually performing well. And when they turn things around later in the generation or the next generation or whatever it is, that will change. I mean, I don't think you should expect, I personally don't think that you should expect a tone of conversation that is not reflective of the performance reality of the company. That's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, though, it's like I don't understand. Like what happened? Like I have to wonder, do these people actually like have professional careers? Because that's a great point. If you're not a performer in your organization, your boss, if they're worth their weight in gold, you know, they're not going to be like, oh, you know what? It's great. Everything's great. You know, it's good. No, they're going to call you out when you're not performing well. You know, they're going to be tangible things that they can look to and point to as to why you're not performing well, and call those things out. I mean, we do this with other consumers, other consumer products. We do this in other aspects in our life. I don't know why it's such a big deal when we do this with Xbox. You know, I might agree with some of these folks' logic if we weren't actually consumers of the Xbox brand.
Yeah, so let's just let Chilango. And there's a lot of people who have asked a lot of questions in chat, and I think one super chat has gone by too. I think we're going to get to those.
Yeah, we'll get to those.
And I'll loop back and answer some of these questions. But Ella Chilango says, BRAP, the problem I got with you and other people every day, 24/7, they find any issue, any problem to attack Xbox. And so I guess, Ella Chilango, the difference in perspective I have is, again, when Xbox does something negative, incorrect, low performing, and you comment that they have done something negative, incorrect, or low performing, that is not an attack. That is a statement of an actual factual event. The fact that Xbox sometimes does those multiple times in a row, that's it's not my fault, right? I mean, you know, so.
See, the problem is that people can't separate the console war stuff from constructive criticism. And criticism that's based on tangible things, performance metrics, sales data, you know, releases of games that are incomplete, you know, development issues. Those things. I mean, like we're not out here saying, "Oh, Xbox sucks, it's terrible." No, we're talking about things that they have done, tangible things. We're talking about the business. Like I just don't understand how people don't understand the difference. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said earlier is that the difference is exactly in the tangible manner in which that difference is displayed, right, in the enjoyment and love of games versus the commentary that admittedly we've chosen to do as far as content creation, meaning reporting on the gaming industry and how those things differ. Is that we continue to buy products from Microsoft, from Xbox, that are of value to us, right? So it's not like there are podcasts who don't have Xbox equipment, right? Who don't have Xbox gear, I've said it before, who buy it simply for the sake of shitting on it, right? But you know, when Xbox has good things, right, we buy it. In fact, one of my complaints has been that I would love to buy Forza Motorsport, right? And my argument is that based on their previous release cadence, that game should have been available by now, but it's not. So my critique or my attack of Xbox is because a game that I want, that they produce, that I hold a value, should have arrived sometime in the last 3 years, and it hasn't. And in my mind, and more so what I critique them about is not solely that the game isn't here, but that the reasons that the game isn't here, they haven't spoken to. And they've done the shuffle step on things like, again, telling me the game was going to be here in 12 months in June, coming up in January, and saying now release date TBD, and kind of talking to me as if you didn't say what you said last June, and then and then doing the sidestep about Starfield at the same time, and then 6 weeks later coming out with delayed release. Like that's just BS to me. And when you talk about critiquing a company on their performance and their PR and their handling, and this is what we talked about a lot today in BRAP chat, it's there are operations, right? And yes, it's a lot of people have come in here and said, game delays happen. I agree, game delays happen. What I then can't accept is that you have an operational problem, you have a problem achieving programmatic operational excellence, and the way that you speak to your consumers about it is to ignore it. That to me is a cultural leadership, business management problem. And I totally understand that other people don't see it that way. But I'm also, when I say those things, I'm also not saying, yeah, I think the rest of the world thinks the way that I do. I'm simply commenting that that's the way that I see it, being a person who's observed things like that for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a great point, Logic. So I want to get back to kind of the content creators and this article that IGN put out yesterday. So IGN posted an article. Someone has gone through the preload files for the PC version of Starfield. Noting that they did not find any signs of the game supporting NVIDIA's DLSS technology. I actually don't have an issue with that article. That headline. Look, we should add to that DLSS or XESS, which is the Intel technology. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, look, this is a pertinent piece of news for people who are on PC like me, for people who are playing Starfield on PC, because I wanted to know. I have an NVIDIA GPU. Many people out in the market have NVIDIA GPUs. And Intel, not as many have Intel GPUs, but still. But this will be relative for those folks who own Intel GPUs that are planning on picking up Starfield. Now, I think what's really disingenuous here, and the issue that I have again with the more fanatical side of the gaming community and the more fanatical side of gaming contenters is Boomstick saying, instead of celebrating the review code release that IGN received, and I'm sure it was more than one, here you are bringing negativity to a joyous time for Xbox Bethesda and the entire Xbox community. I just don't understand the motivation behind these types of stories. This has got to be the most disingenuous tweet I've ever seen. Like, what are we doing here? This article by IGN is a worthy news topic. I don't understand like how reporting on people who have gone through preloaded files on PC and discussing that they're not seeing any signs of the game supporting NVIDIA's DLSS technology. And again, you can imagine what happened. Then the piling on of IGN happened. IGN hates Xbox. IGN is biased. IGN's not going to give Starfield a fair review. Like, this has got to be one of the most disingenuous tweets. And it's like, oh man, I tell you, and I'm reading the IGN article. I'm like, this is actually, this is good to know. This is something I wanted to know. I think you and I had conversations about whether or not Starfield would support DLSS. I mean, that's one of the reasons why in my thought process as I'm thinking about, where am I going to play Starfield? It's PC. And I have an NVIDIA GPU.
Yeah, and we've been kind of talking about that since June. And I'll just read what I tweet about it, because a lot of times it's easier and faster for me to just read. It's one of the more disingenuous takes I've seen. First of all, IGN was not the first to report it. Other outlets picked it up, and I posted about it 3 hours before IGN ran with it, which is normally what you see large publications and outlets do when they are processing through due diligence, right? They see somebody else post it, they make a bunch of phone calls to their contacts, they try and get corroboration before they run with it, which is why typically I always say pump the brakes when you see something the first time until you see a couple of outlets put it out, and look at the size of those outlets before you just go running off to the hills reporting something. But I saw this 3 hours before IGN posted it from a site that I have confidence in, and so I posted it on Twitter. And so I wrote, it makes absolute sense that consumers who own the card that has majority market share would want to know if the card they paid $500 to $1,500 for is supported in its first-party tech by one of the major game releases of the year. A large portion of PC gamers don't like exclusivity in any form. And I wrote, the take is complete horseshit pandering to an uninformed consumer base who constantly needs to have their hurt feelings and Stockholm Syndrome-influenced egos stroked to climax. So, I mean, so there's several key nuggets in there. Again, IGN wasn't the first to run with it. People paid for NVIDIA cards. Some people, not saying that I agree with them, say that I paid for an NVIDIA card. I want to use NVIDIA's technology, right? I want games that implement that technology. And this goes back to like the person who said that I was attacking Microsoft. And I've had this conversation about PlayStation 2. One of the things I personally hold companies accountable for is when you talk about something. And so let me put a little context about that. Often, one of my mantras in business management, right, particularly in the software area, I have this talk with my guys all the time. They talk about things that we should talk to the customer about. And I say, I'm not having a discussion with a customer about something that I don't actually want their input on. And so my point is that when customers get to tell me what it is they want, they don't get to tell me how to do it. So if it's a conversation about how we're going about implementing something, I'm not going to have that discussion with the customer because I never gave them license to have design input on a decision that's mine. It's the same vein and the same philosophy with companies with their marketing, with their PR. Microsoft was the one who announced in late June in a joint I think press release between them and AMD that AMD was the exclusive partner for Starfield. Now, the problem is that's not a general kind of normalized arrangement in PC gaming. NVIDIA and AMD would get kind of marketing rights for a given game, and so that's what drives whether or not you see the AMD logo pop up when you start a PC game or the NVIDIA logo. But in general, most PC games implement both of their technologies. Sometimes it's one before the other, and sometimes the other one rolls in late. But in general, the language that there's an exclusive relationship between a game publisher and a GPU vendor is not the norm. So when this thing was announced in late June, lots of people said, well, what the hell does that mean? Right? And so part of my gig on Microsoft is maybe you don't announce something without completely conveying what that means and what impact that has. And so there's been a big question mark about what this meant for going on 2 months now. And now people have the manifest files, right, from the pre-download, and they're digging through them, and they're going, hey, there's nothing in here that indicates to me that DLSS or XESS is supported, which has been a creeping suspicion since this half announcement was made back in June, which is yet again another thing that I've said about PlayStation, that PlayStation often makes half announcements and doesn't convey their full meaning, kind of talking to their customers like they're stupid, or makes a very big deal about something that it really isn't a big deal and wouldn't have been a big deal if they hadn't opened their mouths about it in the first place. And so that's my problem with how this has been handled by Xbox.
Yeah. And so the other thing too is that people are upset at IGN because like Erodimus, who I don't know if Erodimus is upset with IGN because they made a mistake about not listing Xbox and 4 games in their YouTube videos, although they did mention that those games were coming to Xbox too. Liza P is an example. They said all those games. They said Liza P is releasing on every console except for Nintendo Switch. But people got to get in their feelings and get upset at IGN because they didn't include the Xbox logo. And again, it's the conspiracy theory. It's the far right-wing MAGA type behavior. Oh my God, there's a conspiracy. The election was stolen. And if you go to IGN's website, if you look at the specific games they discussed in those YouTube videos, those games on IGN's websites list all the platforms that those games will be available on. But, again, people want to get upset about IGN not putting up the Xbox logo and making a deal out of them putting only the PlayStation and Nintendo Switch logo. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. It's ridiculous, man.
But I think just to go back to that point, right, and the point we're really making about it is so somebody made a very big deal. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just can't believe people are so upset and wasting their energy on a YouTube video. What is the impact? I would ask people what is the impact to you personally? Do you enjoy the game less? Why do you seek that validation? It's really weird. It's really weird. I don't understand. I'm sorry, but go ahead, man.
Yeah, and Christopher K says Halo Infinite. I think he's saying Halo Infinite doesn't have DLSS or FRSY, and I think I'll have to double check. But I thought Halo Infinite did get DLSS.
I don't know. I don't know if it did.
I thought it did. I haven't played it in a while, but now I've lost my train. Okay, but my point is that so this person made a very big deal about IGN reporting news and made it out to see, which is again, in my opinion, is the thing that I call out a lot of this behavior for. It's a gaslight, attempting to indicate that IGN had been was doing something malicious by reporting news that other outlets reported. That is information that's good for consumers to have, in my opinion.
And this is a legitimate news story. This isn't like Xbox greased the hands of so and so, or like something like it's not a puff piece. It's not clickbait. This is a genuine news story. This is something that people who own NVIDIA graphic GPUs or Intel GPUs would find valuable. It's news. It isn't some kind of like trying to take joy away. The fact that that a 50-year-old man does that mental gymnastics, those kind of mental gymnastics, is part of the problem in the community.
And so one of the things that bugs me about this is, because I see this routinely and I get frustrated by it, is it seems like one of the persistent tactics is to make this attempt to suppress information. And I don't really understand that. Like, I don't think that article said it. And the article that I read, again, which was from another outlet, not all of these articles were running around saying, oh, this is Microsoft being a bully. This is Microsoft being anti-competitive. This is, Microsoft needs to be called on the carpet about that. It was simply, hey, people are digging around through the manifest files, and they're not seeing support for DLSS and XeSS, period. And I say this often on this show, right? Particularly for the people who get up in arms, and I see a lot of them flipping out and getting in their feelings now, typing in all caps, trying to argue. Again, you're trying to have an argument about the thing that we're not saying. So you're just, well, I'll just leave that alone. But the point is that as we often say on this show, many times on this show, I have never said that you should draw the same conclusions that I'm drawing. Ever, never have I said that. What I have said, I've often said, I'm giving you and providing you information which may not be well known and may have been glossed over, and quite frankly on Twitter may have been suppressed, right? So that hopefully, I say this all the time as well, I hope you don't come to the show and listen to me or anyone and put the check in the box and say, okay, yeah, now I get it. No, the point of providing you a lot of this information is so that hopefully you will go off from here, do your own research, bounce an opinion that you've heard from us off of 5, 6, 7 other sources, and draw your own conclusion. That to me is the difference with what we preach versus some other outlets.
I
you have other outlets trying to say this information shouldn't have gotten out, and that to me is appalling.
Well, I mean, I think Boom's tweet is appalling because he is trying to censor information, totally gaslighting the whole situation and making it into something that it's not. This is actually a legitimate news story. And I gotta say, Rodimus says IGN just did call out developers for having a higher standard. Hold on. IGN just did call developers for having a higher standard on their games than make a mistake in the reporting. Rodimus, I gotta be honest with you, man. And I've seen you come in here. The amount of gaslighting you do. And I gotta be honest with you, like, I have a higher expectation of you, Rodimus. I'm gonna pick on you here too, by the way. You are a supposed project manager. Have your PMP, which would lead me to believe that you're educated. Okay? But then you come out and you say shit like this. IGN just called developers for having high standard on their games and make a mistake in the reporting. What is the biggest difference between IGN and software developers? IGN is putting out their information for free mostly. Developers are charging for games that are $70, $60, $50, $30, whatever, depending on the type of game. Like, for you to try to compare the same two and try to equate them as being equal, that is terrible. And this is the problem I have too, Logic, because you have people like Rodimus who are, supposed to be, professors, professionals in the technology space. And they come in here and they talk like this. I have a problem with that. I think it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, right. I don't necessarily have a problem with like every single thing you say, but what I will definitely say is week after week after week after week, here and on Twitter and wherever else, everything that you say is in support of Xbox. And like I don't know how to have a conversation with that or how to get around it. You've never once said anything positive about what I keep harping on, that when BRAP, myself, Slow-Mo, and Forte were playing Halo Infinite all the time, I never heard you say anything positive about that or say anything that that indicates disproof of any of these notions that it's console warring, you guys are ponies. It's always just, anytime we say anything that's a critique of Xbox, you always double down on refuting it. So I don't really know how to have a conversation with a person.
Yeah, it's frustrating because again, I mean, this is somebody who, look, man, I have, when people come in and they introduce themselves as project managers, technology professionals, I have a different expectation of those people. And he just doesn't, the way he speaks just doesn't. He doesn't strike.
So I'm trying not to lose it. I told you the story, BRAP, right, of the one person. Look, I mean, I get along. I try and get along with 92% of the people that I work with. But I had this one person who used to work for me who she was typing up an announcement that needed to go out.
I can't, man. I'm sorry. I can't, man. I don't believe. I'm sorry. I'm starting to think. I don't believe you're a project. You might be a project manager at Costco, sir. I don't believe you're a project manager technology. You say the most asinine shit. I'm sorry, man. I've tried to give you like the benefit of the doubt, but it's just like you say some off the wall shit. I don't get it. You don't speak you don't speak like a high functioning, performing IT professional project manager that I ever come across, and I work with quite a few.
Yeah, and so your comment, FYI, Jedi Survivor RE4 and Dead Island 2 don't support DLS. Again, so this should be patently obvious. Patently obvious. None of those are games from a platform owner. And it should be patently obvious that some of the best games that should come out for a platform you own should be from the publisher who concurrently owns that platform. So, I mean, so quite frankly, again, Jedi Survivor RE4 and Dead Island 2 don't support DLSS. Again, I don't know that I care. Right? I mean, great. I mean,
we're not even
the information out.
We're not even saying that it's bad that Starfield's only supporting FSR. We never said that.
That is true.
So I'm not even sure what the hell, like, FYI, Jedi Survivor, RE4, and Dead Island 2 don't support DLS. Okay, and so what? Like, we're not even having that conversation.
Right, which was my point earlier, that none of those articles, at least the ones that I read, said that this was a bad thing. They simply said, hey, heads up, DLSS is not supported. And the problem I have with it is people acting like you're acting like now, Erodimus, and others who were tweeting about this out today. Nobody should be advocating for suppressing information, particularly technical data, particularly for people who game on PC. No one should advocate for less information to be put out. You know, and I frequently so let's carve this out 3 different ways. Number 1, is this an impact to me personally? No, not directly. You know, there are games. FSR is open source. NVIDIA implements it. The thing that's weird about saying that we have an exclusive partnership with AMD, a lot of the conversation that's going on around now is FSR 3.0 going to debut alongside Starfield. So that might be a thing. And NVIDIA probably won't have implemented FSR 3.0 at that point. Now, I assume, you know, you'll be able to use the past versions of FSR, and that's fine. And there are some games that actually run better utilizing FSR with NVIDIA Silicon. So does it impact me directly? No, not necessarily. Does it impact other gamers? Again, this is one of the...
I just can't, man, with him. I'm sorry. I can't.
Erodimus, they couldn't find the information out until they were able to preload.
Erodimus, I'm convinced. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be picking on you, Erodimus, but you are not who you say you are. There's no way you're a project manager. There's no way. I don't believe that. You think the timing of the information... The game just got the preload. Of course this is going to come out right now. How do you not know that? I'm sorry, Logic.
No. Why don't you get your super chats and
no, I don't. No, Erodimus, we're not sending you a link. I'm not having this conversation with you. It's not. It's a waste of my time.
Yeah, and kind of what you just said is just, I mean, to me is intellectually embarrassing. When you're saying, when you're in here defending something and you're asking us to send a link to it, clearly indicating that you haven't yourself read something that you're sitting here vociferously defending.
No, I think he's trying
kind of a waste of everyone's time.
I think he's trying to get on the show too, and I'm not going to have him on because it's a waste of my time. I'm not questioning it. So so if you're not questioning it, what's the point of? So why would you say I think it's the timing of the information? Clearly, you're questioning it if you're bringing up the timing of the information. I can't anymore, man. I can't do it. I can't. I just.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Tennis says let's move on.
It's so frustrating. It's like I just don't have patience for people that I don't know, that just can't critically think. That's where I just can't. I just can't. I can't do that. I can't bring myself. I can't do it. Now he's talking about echo. This is what he does. Now he's throwing the gasoline out. Echo chamber.
I don't know, man. You got some super chats, man.
Yeah, I can't. I just. Yeah, let me grab these super chats real quick. All right, Tony with the $2 super chat. What's Microsoft's plan next gen? This gen message is weak, cheap. I think that's a reference to Series S and, offering a low cost barrier of entry to video games. Go ahead, Logic.
Who was it that asked that? I'm sorry.
Newtonian.
Yeah, no. You can go ahead.
Yeah, no. I think it's what we're seeing. It's a continuation of getting the Xbox platform onto as many devices as they can and trying to get people into Game Pass. I think that's the ultimate playbook. I do think that they're getting away from the traditional console gamer, and that's fine if that's what they want to do. Hey, more power to them. And I've always thought that I'm not the. I don't think I'm the. I don't think I'm the target consumer anymore for them. I don't think they want that hardcore console gamer. I don't think they want that. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and Tony, my own theory of what they're winding up for next generation is very complex and involved, so I won't go into it tonight. We did cover it on a previous episode, and if you're in live chat tomorrow on for enough to keep going, I will try and quickly cover it then.
I will say this though, if they're able to, I think honestly, I think mobile's the big push for them, and I think that mobile is going to generate a shit ton of money for Microsoft. I think they're going to, if they can get people into the Xbox ecosystem or into Game Pass and mobile, because that's the big pot right there. They're going to be making a lot of money. I just don't, but I think for me, I also think about what that means in terms of the kind of content, the kind of gaming experiences that catering to that mobile crowd would, that those kind of games or experiences probably wouldn't really resonate with me. I could be wrong. They could, still do both, I guess, but.
Yeah, and Josh Ayers asking chat, why would mobile players sub to anything? So Josh, one of my theories is that because there are going to be incentives for them to do so, because it's going to be hooked, tightly coupled to Game Pass, and they won't have any option. So in my opinion, you kind of see this where they got rid of Xbox Live Gold, and they're flipping all of those customers over to now be Game Pass subscribers, which at the end of the day has what result when the next time that they report financial metrics? There be a bump in Game Pass, total Game Pass subscriptions, right? And Sony did the same thing, right? When they flipped everybody from PlayStation Now over to PlayStation Plus, right? They got a sudden big bump that looked really good, right, in reporting metrics. So, Josh asked, go ahead. You got another super chat?
I was gonna say El Chiango says, "Brap Mr. Boostic says something on Twitter that's his opinion. Why do you care?" The problem is that this is a talk show, El Chiango. This is the BRAP rant. So this is what we do. Number one. Two is that he presents his opinion as his fact. The way he characterized what IGN was doing, which is not what they're doing, and the gaslighting. And why it cares, because it leads to the dogpiling on IGN. It leads to people getting upset. It leads to misinformation, disinformation. El Giango, whatever the hell your name is. If you like misinformation, disinformation, hey, more power to you. But that's why we're commenting on it.
Yeah, we're commenting on it because we wanted to point out that other news outlets carry that IGN wasn't the first, that it's a factual statement, it's not just something made up, and that because it does yield valid questions for some consumers.
Yeah, and by the way, and that's and actually, well, I'm not going to, because that's going to dive into political conversations. I'm not going to do that right now. Go ahead, Logic.
A couple other questions that I saw come through chat. No, I'm sorry, we just got overloaded and I stopped being able to catch up. Josh asked PRBS, do you think they're lying? And I wrote this, but I want to kind of expound on it a little bit. Josh, when I say that they throw out a metric that it's PRBS, in my opinion, and not just they throw it out, and in my opinion, it's PRBS, but it also gets weaponized against them. It's this thing of the whole how many people touched a game. So PlayStation people use it when they say, hey, only 1% of Xbox players completed the Halo Infinite campaign. Well, the problem is that metric is driven by I download a game, I purchase a game, download a game, whatever. I pull it down, I boot it one time. In the boot up sequence, it basically, essentially, to super simplify it, writes an entry to a database that starts analytics tracking of my achievements, my metrics that are associated with that game, my playtime, yada, yada, yada. At that point, I am now one person who has now touched the game and am a reportable metric. So when I say it gets weaponized against Halo Infinite, right, in terms of the rare achievements or whatever, that's everyone who pulled down Halo Infinite. A ton of people of whom are people who just pulled down the multiplayer and never had any interest in the single player campaign. So people who weaponize it, to me, are kind of weaponizing a BS metric. By the same token, Microsoft, Xbox touts this, 32 million people, or whatever the last number was, have played Forza Horizon 5. And my problem with that metric is, again, that's people who downloaded the game, installed it, booted it one time, and had a record associated with their gamer tag written to the database. That doesn't mean that they spent a lot of time playing in it, that they stayed engaged with it, that they completed X percentage, that they're level 88 or higher, or whatever. So to me, it's a BS metric that doesn't necessarily that doesn't equate to game sales, or maybe even, I might even say it's not even as relevant as MAU, right? Which is another thing that I think is kind of a squirrely, questionable metric, but fine, I'll take it. But that whole thing of 15 million people, 10 million people played Hi-Fi Rush, right? 32 million people played FH5 or whatever. Whatever those metrics are, I just don't know that they're like critically valid in assessing Microsoft performance.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, I got this.
Go
ahead.
One other person asked, does Starfield have microtransactions? And I think I posted that answer in the chat. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Light X with the $5 super chat says, will the Series S hold back development for third parties? Could we have situations like Baldur's Gate where there be another console for Xbox? Yes, there will be another console for Xbox. Phil Spencer's already said that that's going to happen. Will the Series S hold back development for third parties? I don't think so. I mean, I think maybe you could see another situation like Baldur's Gate 3. But hey, developers, they got to figure it out. They got to what was Booty's comment? They got to prepare better.
Yeah, they got to plan better.
They got to plan better.
He didn't. I actually pulled that quote again. Or he didn't say they need to plan better. He said that they will be able to plan better now that they are more familiar with the hardware.
Okay, yeah. So I think they get more familiar with it than then they'll. I think they'll, anyhow.
So there was another question in chat where Corey Massey asked, I'm not familiar with this, so this is an honest question, but isn't Halo Infinite Campaign a separate app of the multiplayer? It is a separate download, and yes, I am guessing based on what I know about software construction and the way I would engineer or architect something. Yes, it is a separate app, but I don't know in terms of the Xbox backend. I don't know that I would make a separate database entry or have two different sets of foreign keys for how that metric is triggered on the database, is the way that I'm looking at it. At the end of the day, my point is I don't really think that the metric matters in the way that it gets weaponized by PlayStation fans.
Yeah, I agree with that. Then Shirzai Khan City with the $5 super chat says, simply tribalism towards own brand instead of gaming ecosystem by mostly younger gamers on a budget. So I think those are all the super chats there. But Rodimus,
there was one other question. Game Logic, what is your opinion about the possible sales on Steam for Starfield? That was Mr. Tennis. I think it looks positive. I mean, what was the Baldur's Gate 3 tracked high on sales numbers for Steam, right?
Baldur's Gate was, I think it hit like 800,000 concurrent players.
Yeah, I mean, I expect it to do well on Steam.
Yeah, I think the game, if the game is good, it'll do well on Steam. I actually think that's probably where you're going to see the bulk of sales for, and probably I would venture to say play. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking the majority of player engagement will be on PC, and we'll see majority of sales on PC for obvious reasons. I mean, obviously GamePass and stuff being on the Xbox console. So.
Just one other note on that. The other thing that will be interesting to watch is Steam. Steam reports those numbers in terms of money being made, and so when you take into consideration like the multiple different tiers in which Starfield is packaged on Steam, that there are going to be lots of people who pay right at the $100 tier. That serves it well again to pop into those top numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I got the digital deluxe edition of Starfield on Steam, so I will be there a week early playing Starfield. I cannot wait. I'm really excited. And Rodman says, and the reason I mention other games because it is AMD is pushing their partnership.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I mean, I apologize. Again, I'm just going to make an open, transparent statement just so there's no confusion. Just Erodimus's train of conversations just dropped below my threshold for paying attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's the point you're trying to make, that's the point you should have made from the get-go.
All right, so did we cover? So we were going to cover early access Starfield review codes and Starfield review codes were the other two things.
Yeah, because Let's talk about the Starfield review codes because those went out this week. They went out this past Thursday. A lot of content creators, Xbox content creators, received the review code for Starfield, And I know SkillUp did not receive a review code. I believe he is blacklisted by Bethesda. I think he may have leaked something a couple of years ago, something Bethesda related, and got blacklisted from them. But I'm wondering if he's going to pick up the early release deluxe edition to start playing a week early and then give his review. But anyhow, that kind of begs the question. They handed out a lot of the review codes to Xbox influencers, and not all Xbox influencers. I think there's some out there that are that I would say are there might be one or two Xbox content creators.
Well, Kids Move didn't get a review code, right?
I don't know if he did. But
I don't think he did.
But but there's there's like maybe one or two Xbox content creators I can think off the top of my head that are critical of Xbox, and I would go to them more than the others. But the others did receive review codes, and one in particular was it Xbox Era actually set the tone, set the narrative of that Starfield wouldn't get a fair shake from the gaming media. Actually, Miles is confirming Kid Spoof did receive one.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for that correction.
Yeah, so you have these Xbox influencers who have received reviews. Look, my personal opinion on this, I would prefer people who, and I know why they're doing this. Obviously, they're going to give it to content creators who are very pro Xbox, who aren't critical of Xbox, because they want positive reviews of this game. I would have preferred, and again, look, I have issues with gaming media at times. They don't get it right at times. Some of the articles that gaming media put out are just terrible. I question their ability to review games at times, but there's a handful of larger, more platform agnostic content creators on YouTube that review games. There are other journalists who have been reviewing games for a decade plus. Those are the individuals that, at least for Starfield, that I'm going to be leaning on and reading more of their reviews, because my concern is that we're going to see some review bias because of the amount of, pro Xbox content creators that received review codes. Now, look, I get it. If I was in Bethesda's seat, if I was Microsoft, I would do the same thing. I get it. For me as a consumer, though, I'm raising eyebrows.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like a clean kill, right? I mean, and let's also be straight up. Those aren't reviews, because those people don't review video games for a living. And like you said, we each have our problems with the media, with the game journalism, and there are problems out there. But the point is, however, scores are aggregated, scores are balanced. You can look at Metacritic, or you can just compare scores on your own. You can read the reviews, and that's another key thing. Like, these people who receive these review codes, they're not going to write anything. And you guys have heard me scream Sturm and Drang very often about that there is more value, and I have greater respect for somebody who sits down and actually does the work to write something than somebody who runs off and does a YouTube video. So you have a lot of people who got these review codes who are not professional journalists, who do not write reviews for a living, who are not going to put anything in writing. And so what they're going to be posting, they're not reviews. They're going to be posting how the game makes them feel. And they're going to be posting biased by their emotional relationship with the brand, in my opinion. And that's going to run.
And real quick logic, the other thing too is, and you have to imagine that there's that pressure of access. I mean, their currency is access to Microsoft. Yeah. The ability to get codes for these games.
So who of them are going to be critical of the game? So the point is
that's
that
my point. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. While you will still be able to go to Metacritic and OpenCritic, and see those review scores, you're also just going to have a large volume in the space, which I believe is deliberately and in a very calculated way designed to tamp down the potential volume that Xbox can't control right in the gaming media. And so you're going to get this groundswell of positive volume across social media and forums and on YouTube about the game, because none of them are going to speak critically about the game. And I don't personally think that the game's going to be bad. I think the game's going to be fine. I don't necessarily know that the game's going to...
My Metacritic prediction's 92, by the way. So, but go ahead, Logic.
Yeah. So, but it's just, I just believe it's kind of a counter op to control messaging and PR, and that just kind of comes off as feeling contrived, right? And I say the same thing about Apple, right?
I mean, it is contrived, but I mean, let's. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but because I forget stuff, as you know. So when I get a thought, I'm like, I need to share this because I'll forget it. No, but like I heard you say Apple. Other companies do this. Like I said, like if I was Microsoft, I get it. Like the carrot is access, but that's where the bias comes in, the potential bias, and where you might not see the level of criticism out of concern of, oh, I can't be too critical because if I am, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah. So every year Mark Gurman gets the new iPhone, right? In advance for gets it in the review window, where very few outlets do. Other outlets that are very even-handed don't get review devices. I never read the Mark Gurman review of the iPhone. Why would I? I know it's going to come off positive. How is that useful to me? That's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what you're also going to get a large volume about with regards to Starfield. To me, from a marketing PR perspective and trying to handle messaging in the company, I think it would have been more appropriate, and what I would have preferred to have seen and what I would have pushed for to have done is get review codes to the actual gaming media and journalists 2 weeks in advance. Go ahead and get them to the influencers a couple of days before embargo lifts. They'll have a chance to play the game, but they won't participate in any kind of contamination or disingenuine kind of influence. The scores that will be out will be the scores that will be out, right? And then between letting the influencers have it a couple of days before embargo lifts, and you already have the early access window, right? The early access window is also supposed to be part of your buffer zone to hopefully get the game in the hands of people who were already tipped forward enough to probably like the game, and that's why they were willing to pay the extra money for it, right? And as long as it's not a catastrophe, right, are going to speak well about the game. So you kind of already have this wired and engineered into your business framework. Getting those codes well in advance to influencers and people who, make their livings off of monetizing their channels and being positive and pro Xbox just has a very suspicious look to me.
Yeah.
And since I'll go ahead and chain to that, since Erotimus is already in the zone of accusing us of conspiratorially being anti-Xbox, I'll go ahead and throw out my conspiracy on some of the other things that we've said before. I personally think that what Erotimus and other people are doing with this whole IGN slander, because we also saw the thing a couple days ago where people were complaining because IGN didn't run the story as Xbox gamers can pre-download Starfield, and they made a big to-do out of that. I personally think what you guys are doing is you're trying to drag IGN's name through the mud in advance of them popping out the review score on Starfield so that you can discredit whatever review score they put out about Starfield. That's just my conspiracy theory.
I hope IGN gives Starfield a 10. Because I really do. Just so I can because that's going to hold totally discredit. But then again, I should say, because if they give it like a 7 out of 10, then they're going to be like, oh, see, they're biased. But then they won't go back and look at the historical scores that IGN has given other Xbox first-party games. So they like to cherry pick. That's all this is. It is cherry picking. That's all they do. They just cherry pick. Whatever suits their narrative, they're just going to cherry pick. Never mind the entire body of work. They're just going to cherry pick. Actually, Josh Harris brought up Sony has blacklisted reviewers as well. Yeah, Sony's done that too, and I think I don't agree with Sony doing that. But again, like we said, Apple does this, other companies do this, Sony does it too. I don't agree with that.
And just to be careful, right? Like, so there are two different things too, right? So blacklisting a reviewer because you feel that they've been, again, not saying that your justifications are genuine, but because a company feels that a reviewer has been unfair to their brand, that to me is different than the thing that I mentioned, which is the contrived, you get review copies in the hands of people that are going to be pro brand,
Yeah, they're
right?
not going
Unquestionably.
to be critical. Yeah, they're not going to be. They're not going to apply the same critical lens as like an IGN or GameSpot, or one of the a Games Radar. Yeah. So, David VGS says, did you guys ever scream bias when reviewers gave good scores to Sony games? David, thanks for the whataboutism. Stay on topic, buddy. I mean, like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what that question about. Again,
it's just a what about it. It's just what.
Yeah, none of us said anything about reviewers. Who are actually professional reviewers.
We're talking about content creators. We're talking about pro Xbox content creators.
Exactly. We're talking about people who are not reviewers and are not journalists.
Yeah, these people aren't journalists. They don't review games, for a living. It's not what they do.
So and it's up to you if we cover early access. I don't personally feel the need to cover it. I think everything that we've said enough will make it patently obvious that anybody running.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Sorry, that anybody running around saying that you getting $350 off of the upgrade package for Starfield is actually a 69% discount. I think we've all established that that's going to be a reach. That is a reach. And so the people who are upset about paid early access, they're upset about paid early access. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I do agree that it's a PR marketing messaging problem for Microsoft to not address it when they said one of the upsides of Game Pass is day and date, and there are people who now feel, well, now what you're saying is it's day and date for some, but it's day and a different date for others, and we're all paying the same amount for Game Pass. Again, not giving validity to that, but I'm saying I have identified through empirical evidence that there are people out there who feel that way. And it's not up to me to be dismissive of it and say that they don't have an argument and I don't care how they feel and they should be ignored. Right? The company should address it.
We had some people in the chat on Wednesday that were voicing their displeasure with early access. They felt like, hey, I paid for Game Pass. Part of the promise of Game Pass is giving me games day and date. I should be, if a game is ready to play, I should have access to that game when it's ready to play day one. And they're saying that's not the case with Starfield because of early access. I get that. Now, I also understand that Microsoft never specifically said, and again, I'm not going to be dismissive of those people. I think that's a fair question or criticism to have. But I also, Microsoft never said anything about early access. I think if this thing generates enough, if enough people start voicing their displeasure over this might be something that Microsoft may need to address.
I will say, and again, I go back to, I often try and separate these things between what bothers me personally versus what may bother other consumers. I will say, I do kind of turn a little bit of the stink eye towards the $99 price point, right? That at $100, that if you're a Game Pass subscriber, which I am, and you want to purchase a perpetual license to Starfield so that you have access to that game as long as it's available, and it's not based on you staying subscribed to Game Pass, right, which to me is vendor lock-in, that at that $100 price tier, you being a Game Pass subscriber provides you zero benefit. You get no discount against the game itself, which to me seems maybe a little questionable. You don't get a you don't get a 20% discount on the game itself, which would reduce your overall $100 price package. You also don't get your 10% discount on the upgrade. So you just pay $100 outright. So for those people who are Game Pass subscribers who want to make that choice, the only way to make that choice is to essentially forfeit your benefit of the discount, which is ostensibly a thing that you pay for. So that just, to me, seems a little problematic when, again, when you're part of a bonus club, I'll put it that way, and you're paying in for the gain of a benefit to then, have the only way you can access something to be to forfeit that benefit, that seems a little kind of not even-handed. So
yeah, no, I get that. I mean, but like I said too, Microsoft also never said that. Rodimus is because I think you have to always buy DLC. Rodimus is right. You do always have to buy DLC,
but you still get a 10% discount.
You do get a discount, yeah. But but the upgrade for like if you get the if you want to get the early access, you got to pay an additional like $32 or something, or $31 right now.
So if you do the upgrade, you do get your 10% discount, and you only pay $31.50. But what you are buying is a Game Pass associated license that exists for as long as you are a Game Pass subscriber and continually paying into the bucket, right? Plus the upgrade. The upgrade, which does you absolutely no good at the point when you stop paying for Game Pass because you no longer have access to the game. So that just when you think about that from a pricing policy, that just seems a little austere, right?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but I go back to also the point that Microsoft also never, said that. Oh yeah, day and date also means early access. They never said that, but again, I understand people's perspective of, well, hey, if a game's, because the idea of day and date's okay when the game's ready to play. It's day one ready to play, then I have access to it. And in this case, the game's ready to play a week before, and you don't have access to it. That's how someone explained it to me, like who was upset about it being paywalled early. And
the other thing I'll say is, in terms of, again, a thing that a company has to handle because you're the one who put it out there. Just like we talk about the Xbox Series X, right? In my opinion, I don't think that there's any hardware problem associated with the Xbox Series X. But they advertise it as being a certain thing, and then they haven't delivered the software that goes along with what they advertised, right? So in the same way, they have said, hold on, sorry, just one second. Go ahead, Brett.
True Virtual says, us Xbox guys are tired of the bias, so we started doing it too to keep this fair. I hope you're joking. Is that a joke? I hope that's a joke. I hope people really don't think like that. That's kind of scary. Leon Reaper says, I don't think Game Pass should have early access if devs need the money. If everyone on Xbox only had Game Pass, then they miss out a chunk of individual sales. Someone said something about DLC. One of the biggest problems I have with subscription gaming, buying DLC and content for games I don't own is a big no for me. Yeah, I get that perspective. They also do it because they want you to keep. They want to keep you in the ecosystem too, though. They don't want you to leave.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is about where Microsoft cuts.
Wait, hold on. True Versal, you have to be trolling. Phil and Trump are the two most important people in the world, in my opinion. Please tell me you have to be trolling. Like this, that's not a serious comment. I hope it's not.
So the thing I was going to mention is, that Microsoft needs to kind of true up with what they've advertised and what they've incentivized and what they've driven the market to be, right? They have created an incentive, and they have attracted a market demographic for the consumers who prioritize low cost of access. And I think what they need to understand is, now that you have rolled out the red carpet and invited those people into your ecosystem, you need to understand that demographic is more heavily incentivized to be upset about any notion of consumers not being equal. And again, you could say that you don't care, or you don't think that's right, or that's not the way I personally think about it. I think if I'm willing to pay $10 extra, I should go to the head of the line, right? BRAP knows Game Logic don't wait in lines. I don't do that. Do not do that.
You know what's funny is that before I went to a theme park, I guess an amusement park recently, and I remember you saying that to me, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but I don't mind waiting in lines, until I had to wait in line, and then I thought about, wait a minute, there is this thing called Speed Pass, and it was the best decision I ever made that day.
Yeah, look, I don't go to the opera to sit in cheap, bad seats. Again, and it's not because they're cheap, but it's just because if I'm going to go through the pain in the butt of going to the opera, I'm going to sit in the good seats, right? Like I don't do. Again, you and I were talking about Disney World, right, earlier this week. I was like, look, the reason Disney World is a tough thing for me to bite the bullet on is because if we go, I'm not staying at the Best Western off of the amusement park, right? And then have to deal with the kids screaming and yelling because they're not. No, we're going to stay in the park. That's going to be expensive. That's a choice we need to make. So my point is, if you invite the people into the movie theater who are only willing to pay for the matinee, then you need to understand that those people are now going to be upset when they don't get the same popcorn that everybody else gets. right? You've cultivated that market demographic to be part of your ecosystem. So you need to understand what upsets them and handle that appropriately, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. When you have set the expectation that there's a low cost barrier of entry into your ecosystem, and then you don't do that, you have basically a paywall for early access. Yeah, I can see why people would get upset. Absolutely.
Right, because you've invited the people into your system who don't like elitism.
No, they don't. They
don't think they should be second class citizens because they're not paying the same. Right? I mean, everybody should be equal.
Everyone should be equal. Exactly. Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. It's the reason why when I go to sporting events, I tend to sit club level because I want the amenities. I don't want to be, I don't want to have to wait in line forever to go to the bathroom. I want to be able to go to get my drinks when I can. I like food being delivered to me. I don't want to wait in line while I'm at a sporting event. So, oh boy. Anonymous, I shop at Walmart because it's down the street from my house. We're not going to start with the Walmart slander again because Logic and Slow-Mo did that the other week.
Hey, and he gets flack for it. We find it ununacceptable.
Yeah, they give me flack.
So we are consistent.
But look, it's convenient. It's a low cost of entry for me.
So Matt Joe says, who will have so people who get early access to Starfield are people who buy the upgrade package, to get which gets them the DLC. People who buy the premium package, which gets them, I think, everything in the Constellation edition except
I did go to Target today. I meant to mention that earlier.
Which I think gets them everything in the Constellation edition except for like the suitcase and the watch, and then the Constellation edition people who get the suitcase and the watch.
Yeah, I used to also shop at Nordstrom's and Neiman Marcus, but I don't because they're not close to where I live now. So, yeah, I only go to Walmart to buy supplies, toilet paper and cleaning supplies and paper towels. That's why I go to Walmart. I don't buy anything. I don't buy clothes from there. Actually, no, I did buy that one T-shirt because I thought it was funny. One of those like Powered by Freedom T-shirts. But I don't buy my clothes from there.
Yeah, I get it, man. You have stuff for which you take the low price minimum meets the minimum requirement route. I understand it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't agree with it or accept it, but that's you.
Like, hey, I did switch to America's Network.
That's very true. Thank you very much for joining Team Red.
Yes, I did. I got to say, man, it was what an experience. What a network, by the way. So much better than Magenta.
And Ryan asks, do you think the Game Pass? Do we think Game Pass Ultimate will ever do the same thing that PlayStation Plus does, which is to allow you to buy for a year?
See, by the way, Rodimus just said Bill Gates shops at Walmart. See? If it's good for Gates, it's good for BRAP, I guess.
Game Pass Ultimate at a discounted price. I don't. That's a tough one for me, Ryan. I mean, when I think about, so the whole point of doing software as a service and doing subscription software, the whole point of doing subscriptions is because you are valuating as having a greater positive impact on the financial health of your company, that operational cash flow. And that consistent cash constantly coming in is more upside to you than just simple revenue. So when you bank, right, a customer's money up front, $120 for the whole 12 months, that seems in my head to be a good thing that you would want to do for the financial health of your company. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just the $17 per month is better for Microsoft. Falky would definitely know. That's like down in the weeds finance, which I would have to go back to the school textbook.
Where is Falky, by the way? He's been MIA lately.
Yeah, he's around. I've seen him on Twitter a couple times. So
yeah, I haven't seen Falky in a while. Noble Chairs is actually putting out, speaking of Starfield chair. Logic is not getting it because it's not Secret Labs.
Oh, who posted that in chat?
No, you said that. You said.
Oh yes,
that.
yeah. But did somebody post about the chair in chat? I didn't.
No,
see
I was just on Amazon, just looking at some things.
Yeah.
And
that's true. Yeah, it's not the Prestige brand. I'm not buying the knockoff gaming chair.
Oh wow. That chair is actually pretty expensive. Noble chairs aren't cheap, by the way.
I think I have to pull the thread on this, but I think based on what I've been seeing from brands that are very much just like Secret Labs chairs, I think there may have been a patent or some other thing associated with Secret Labs, and whatever manufacturing line those chairs roll off of, that is no longer makes it a thing that only Secret Labs is wearing. Because now I see just tons of chairs that are copycat chairs that look exactly like Secret Labs chairs.
Yeah, so, I mean, Noble chairs very much looks like Secret Labs.
Yeah. So little known thing, Yeti cups. If you pay for a Yeti cup and then you ever go into Walmart and like there's a cup that looks exactly like a Yeti cup but it doesn't say Yeti on it and it's like 20% of the price of a Yeti cup, it's because they come off the exact same manufacturing line. Like that machine where they roll off, literally at the end of the production line, it splits in a Y, it forks, and the left side, or whatever, goes to an extra step that stamps Yeti on it, and the right side doesn't. And that's the only difference between those two cups.
Yeah.
They are literally engineered the same.
Yeah, see, you can get some good stuff at Walmart. See,
but I paid for the Yeti stamp.
Oh, man. You're like me. Like someone's like, oh, why don't you get a Tahoe? I'm like, I'm not getting a Tahoe. I'm getting a Denali. They basically come off the same manufacturing line. Do you know that, Hamp?
What's that say one more time? Sorry.
I said when people say to me like, oh, why didn't you get a Tahoe? I'm like, I'm not getting a Tahoe. I'm getting a Denali. They basically come off the same line, production line.
Well, right. Yeah, that's kind of. That's the analogy I was going to draw to the people who were angry about when was it? Oh no, it was the Xbox people that I see who were angry about the PC thing, and I'm like you guys are like people who own Toyotas who are mad about Lexuses.
No,
you realize it's the same car company, right?
Acura's Honda. It's the same thing. I mean, like my Denali is basically a Tahoe. I mean, it's made by the same. It's made by GM. They're both made by GM. They come off the same production line. Although I will say the Denali has nicer features. Oh, the Denali it looks so much better too, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, and Jeffy Gaming says a lot of PS gamers I know buy PS Plus in yearly rates and stack. Yeah, Jeffy, I don't stack, but I definitely buy annually. So I don't do month to month with PlayStation Plus because it's cheaper if you buy it annually. It would be nice to have that option for Xbox.
Yeah, no, PlayStation Plus is cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah, they do it for Office 365. So again, like it seems like they would, but maybe there's a reason why while GamePass still kind of hasn't hit that rocket point where it kind of curves up really sharply in terms of numbers of subs and the amount of revenue it's generating. I mean, I'm sure that they've been pulling that coal cart uphill and have it doing okay now, but I'm sure they would like the trajectory to go sharper.
Ryan Landis says, my truck will be 20 next year, still younger than the Creation Engine. You're not wrong.
Oh, damn.
You're not wrong. Gosh, I wish Bethesda would abandon the Creation Engine, but that's not happening. Starfield is based on the Creation Engine. So, a modified version of the Creation Engine. Still looks good. I think Starfield looks great, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't have some of the problems that some other people have had. Even people who've been on the show with like the combat and things. I think it'll be fine. I do, however, I will say that as a person who prefers performance, I would prefer 60 frames per second. But still, what?
Yeah,
it's an incredible point. Today's the 19th. It is 12 days before this game drops, and we don't know what the performance is going to be on PC.
Yeah, we have no idea.
We only know that it's capped at 30 frames per second on console. There's been no official statement about what we can expect on how it performs on PC.
IGN better not put out an article about that, or else.
Oh man, they better not refer to it as a PC game because it's actually an Xbox game that's been ported to PC, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I still can't wait. I mean, it's 12 days away. I'm excited. This is one of my most anticipated games. So I really hope though that the game performs well on PC. Fingers crossed. So.
Yeah, agreed. Or else I'm gonna be wearing $600 worth of egg on my face.
Yeah, or else I'll be back to Baldur's Gate 3, which is probably actually really going to be this year's game of the year. So let me ask you, Logic, do you think, right or wrong, do you think for those who have reviewed Baldur's Gate 3 and are reviewing Starfield, that's going to kind of come into the conversation or come into the thought process as a critique Starfield? Do you see that as a potential comparison?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, if I reviewed Baldur's Gate 3 and then I'm playing Starfield, like, am I going to start thinking about Baldur's Gate 3, what that game did in comparison to Starfield? Because they're both, open world RPGs.
Yeah, just because that thought creeps into my mind when there are games, again, right, wrong, me not having a critical enough eye, whatever. That thought only really creeps into my mind when games are stylistically designed the same.
Yeah.
So if it was another first-person RPG, that would jump into my mind. But given its kind of top-down isometric view, like, it's just not gonna.
Yeah, based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
I get that it's an RPG, and at the end of the day, when we start talking about this game critically, and we start talking about this game particularly towards Game of the Year, there are going to be discussions about, well, what does each game do for this aspect of design and game implementation, and there's going to be a lot of that similar ground that's covered between those two games. But I don't feel like this theory that because Baldur's Gate is so good, that's going to be in reviewers' minds, and that's going to cause them to downgrade Starfield. I personally don't think it will, and I know I don't think of things that way.
Yeah. No, I would hope they just judge Starfield on its own merits and not based on what Baldur's Gate 3 did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's fair to have if you played both games, I think it's fair to have that conversation and say, if these turn out to be, two of the best RPGs of the year, talk about those experiences. But I just hope that Starfield is again just based solely on that experience and not calling back to what Baldur's Gate 3 did or what Tears of the Kingdom did.
Yeah, I think it's much more likely for those reviews to be impacted by past experience with Bethesda games. I think if let's just say in a crazy world,
that's
I'm just saying this as a for instance, if Baldur's Gate 2, because I'm looking at a Baldur's Gate 2 review right now, if Starfield does something for some reason like egregiously off or different than Fallout or Skyrim, or if it doesn't stick the landing on an aspect that a past version of a Bethesda game did, I think it'll be hit. And here's my other thing. If there's any kind of stench wafting off of this thing that smells like Fallout 76, just in terms of things that feel contrived and feel like they are clearly breadcrumbing the intention to monetize off of Starfield, I think that will come off. I think if people see red flags that they felt like they saw with Fallout 76, I think that'll have a negative impact on review scores.
Yeah, I agree. But I also do see content creators on YouTube comparing the two. I can see that.
Yeah, I've never understood. Same thing with all these silly people who run around making screenshot comparisons of oh, let me compare Gran Turismo 7 to Forza Motorsport. I'm like, you do understand Gran Turismo 7 is a production game that is actually out on the street versus Forza Motorsport, which is in development. Again, I have my problems with Forza Motorsport, but I'm not going to break my rubric, right, that says you don't compare games that are out against games that are in production pipeline. That's just stupid.
Yeah. Ryan just asked, are you guys going to play the Cyberpunk DLC? It's out pretty soon. You're Ryan, I was planning to, but Baldur's Gate 3 happened. So I'm probably not going to play that now. That's probably something that's going to get pushed back either later this year, like November, December for me, or early next year.
Yeah, for me, I have not played Cyberpunk. I was waiting for it to kind of, tip nose upward in terms of how the Steam community has reviewed it. It hit that point this year, but I just haven't had time to get around to it. And so, my approach path on that will probably be, if the DLC also comes off good, I'll be interested in playing, but I'll be going into Cyberpunk for the first time.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what's the because that comes out. When does Phantom Liberty come out? I'm trying to see when this comes out. Hold on a sec here.
September 26th.
September 26th. Okay. How is Cyberpunk? I'm looking at Cyberpunk on Steam right now. Cyberpunk is $30 on Steam right now.
Hey, that may beat out Game Pass for the best value in gaming.
Yeah, 90% of the reviews are positive on Steam, are very positive for Cyberpunk.
What? Really?
Recent reviews. Wow. All reviews. That was recent reviews. All reviews. 552,000 reviews. 80% of the 550,417 user reviews for this game are positive.
Yeah, that means that the recent reviews have also gotten to a statistically significant point where they've dragged, because that all reviews hasn't been that all reviews has been lower.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's not only a good up tilt in just recent reviews, but also the volume of recent reviews has statistically dragged it across another line. You know, when you aggregate them with all of the reviews in the past, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think didn't the Cyberpunk Netflix anime series, didn't that have some positive impact to Cyberpunk in terms of new sales? Or am I making I thought it did.
Just people went back to it. Yeah. People were like, oh, you know, the series is good. Let me go check on this is the thing that often happens, right? People who don't, I don't necessarily want to say pay attention, but, you know, I periodically, you know, I have it on my to-do list to periodically go back and look at these games that I'm interested in that didn't get positively, reviewed by the Steam community, and just see if they've improved. And, you know, if you don't do that, then, you know, you don't know. And so I think the cartoon caused a lot of people to go back and pull the thread on that and go, oh, yeah, it looks like they've, you know, patches and whatever have turned this game around.
Yeah.
The Last of Us Part 1, which is another one that I often check on, recent reviews are now very positive on the PC version of The Last of Us.
Yeah. One game that I may check out at some point, maybe later this year, that just came up is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is the spiritual successor to what is it? Jet Set Radio Future.
Yeah.
That's only 2,000 user reviews on Steam, but 98% of those are positive. I don't think that the publisher actually put out a tweet the other day saying the game hadn't been reviewed or something. Look at that now. Now I'm wondering, has that game been reviewed? Yeah, Josh says that looks good. Yeah, Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio is one of my favorite games. Did you ever play Jet Set Radio?
I did not.
Yeah.
But PC Gamer gave Baldur's Gate 2 a 91.
Oh, it did?
Back in the day. Yeah, and gave Baldur's Gate 3, I think, a 90. Did it give it I don't know what it gave Baldur's Gate 3, actually. I thought it gave it a 97, but I'm not sure. IGN gave Baldur's Gate 3 a 10 out of 10.
They give it a what?
IGN gave Baldur's Gate 3 a 10 out of 10.
They're biased. See Metacritic here. Yeah, there aren't. Wow, there are not many reviews here. Baldur's Gate 3 sitting at 96 Metacritic right now.
Yeah. PC Gamer did give Baldur's Gate 3 a 97.
Yeah, Bomber Cyberpunk. I'm not seeing any reviews for this game. Wow. So they weren't kidding.
And Josh asked, have we checked out the Twisted Metal show? I haven't. I know EJ has watched it.
Oh, I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. It was better than what I expected, for sure.
Well, that's the positive uptake, right? That all of us had like low opinions that show was coming in hot and was a dumpster fire, and it got taken by surprise.
I wasn't moved by the original trailers that they showed, but the actual show is actually pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised, and I got to say, Samoa Joe's characterization of, or his him acting as or Samoa Joe as Sweet Tooth was actually really, really good. He did a really good job. He's not voicing Sweet Tooth, but it's a former SNL alum. I forget his name.
Gosh, what is that guy? I can see his face now. He's the guy from Arrested Development, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Will Arnett.
Yeah. Will Arnett. Yeah. So Will Arnett does the voiceover. Samoa Joe does the physical acting of Sweet Tooth, and they both do a tremendous job. Sweet Tooth, the way they actually portrayed Sweet Tooth was actually really good. I was surprised because I was like, how are they going to pull that off? And I thought they did a really good job. So I'm actually looking forward to see. I can't wait for season 2 now. I'm looking forward to it. It really was good. It was good. Had some cheesy moments to it, but it was very good. All right, Logic. Unless you have any other topics, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show.
Yeah, man. I need to play some. I don't know what I'm gonna have time to play tonight. Dead Island, some more Dead Island 2, or I might get back to Fire Emblem Engage, or maybe depending on what's going on with the Scumcast, I may have to get over to Call of Duty. So,
I think they're all playing Remnant 2 right now.
Oh, that will actually be good. I mean, I want to get back on the Call of Duty like next month, but I would actually want to play more Dead Island 2 or get back to. I keep wanting to say Tribal Emblem Engage, or I want to get back to Fire Emblem Engage, actually.
Yeah, Tribal Emblem Engage is what's played on Twitter. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Baldur's Gate 3. Because why wouldn't I? It's so good.
Yeah, it's a perfect game, right? IGN says so.
Yeah, I mean, I give it 10 out of 10. That means it's perfect. 10 out of 10 means perfection. So, all right. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it as always. And I don't know when I'll do another BRAP rant. Maybe next weekend. Remember, there's no BRAP this week coming up. No BRAP on Wednesday, as I have to travel for work. I'm heading out to Florida for work, so I won't. There won't be on Wednesday. Actually, I'm flying out, so there won't be any BRAP next Wednesday. But we'll be back the following Wednesday to talk about all things Starfield. And I may do a BRAP rant next weekend. But other than that, thank you everyone for coming out and hanging out with us this evening. Really appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.